Again, welcome back to the long overdue new episode of the Special Access podcast. We've been on an extended hiatus recently, and I can't speak for John, but it's done me the world of good. So I'm ready to get back into it, and thank you for joining us again. And thank you, all of you, for following, liking, subscribing, and commenting already. And if you haven't done so, please don't forget. It means a lot. So let's get right to it. Grant Baker was born and raised in the Northern California city of Redding. He is a lifelong experiencer of both ET greys and has had close-up Bigfoot encounters and has ongoing paranormal encounters that have followed him around. He is married with 3 children, and his wife is also an experiencer. Grant now resides in Southern Oregon, USA. So welcome to the show, Grant.
Thank you for having me, guys. Really appreciate the invite.
Welcome, Grant. So, as described there, Grant, you're an experiencer of UFOs, ghosts, entities, Bigfoot. We think it's important to give a voice to experiencers who suffer more than anyone else for the stigma attached to this topic. So, hence the reason I invited you on. And obviously, we met up on Dave Scott's show on Spaced Out Radio, and I knew I needed to have a chat with you when I saw that. So, before we get into what you experienced, this, I believe, is your second interview. Like I say, it is your second interview now, as you haven't done any other one since that Dave show now, have you?
No, not as of yet.
No problem. Okay, so what stirred you to come out and start discussing at this point? I mean, you have a family, I know, and coming out, for me, that was a major consideration. Did it affect your decision?
No, my family actually supports me quite a bit. Especially my wife, obviously, like you said, she has experiences as well. The children are so used to it. They, know Dad has experiences, has seen UFOs, things like that. They're so accustomed to it that it really didn't bother my family. So coming out was actually, I've been doing it for years with family, friends, anybody that wants to talk about it. And it's one of those things where once the media actually started catching up with the experiencers, then all of a sudden, and in fact, I didn't even ask for it originally. Dave Scott had happened to be reading the chat group, and I had said something to the effect that I was chased by one to another person that was in the super chats, and he happened to catch that and wanted to question me on it. So later that night after the show, about 2:00 in the morning, he started talking to me and invited me on the show, and that's how all this began.
Convinced you to come out, basically. I understand. Yep. So, I mean, let's start at the beginning. What is your first memory of an experience? I understand you were 5 years old, you said on Dave's show, when it all started. Can you describe to us what you saw? Well, obviously, we've got a different audience to Dave, so if you could just run through that for us.
Oh, absolutely. It started out one night, just like any other night. My grandmother would read us books. We were kids. I was 5. My sister's 2.5 years younger than I am. And we both shared a room at that time. It was age appropriate for that. And my bed was closest to the wall. Hers was closest to the window. And it was kind of a toss-up of if I stayed in my own bed or she was, we would just swap out all the time, depending on who got scared the most of the dark. This night, the window was open. My grandma got done reading the books, told us good night. I ended up staying in my sister's bed. And I couldn't get to sleep. Lights on were outside, one of the solo lights that, the street lights that are out there. And I just had this urge to look left, like something was watching me. And I looked over, and sure enough, here comes a gray alien. I saw the hand first, and then right outside my window was a little concrete bench. And it kind of looked like to me that he was pulling himself up onto that. I couldn't tell the height of him at all, but I could definitely tell the face and the hands. Skinny, not the triangular shaped head that you could see, definitely the black almond eyes. He had more of a skinnier head, longer. In fact, kind of about like what that picture is behind me right there, and with a little bit more square jaw. And when we locked eyes, it was the most, I couldn't even, there's not a word that I can use. I was literally petrified. I didn't know what it was, never heard about aliens before in my life before this. I was in a Christian home where they didn't even believe in ghosts. And this thing started reaching for me through the window. And when it did that, I screamed. And when I screamed as a little child, I shut my eyes for a second. And the feeling of it's not like waking up, but I did have a kind of a jolt, like just a pause, I guess you would say. but I could still hear my screaming. When I opened my eyes, the windows to the window itself was shut. The roll down blinds were shut. I was in my own bed. I wasn't even under my own covers, and the bed was cold. My grandmother come running in because I screamed audibly, and she told me it was just a dream and told me to go to sleep. And in fact, it wasn't until Dave Scott's show when I actually relayed that over the air that I realized that she didn't even notice that I was in a different bed. And that was the start of my experience, was meeting that guy.
So whose bed were you in then? Your sister's or your brother's? Or?
My sister's. Yep.
Okay. So did she see anything at that point?
No, she was actually asleep. She was able to get to sleep a lot earlier. In fact, she was probably asleep before the book was done. And I've always had a hard time falling asleep at night. Yeah. So I stay up quite late. So she didn't.
She didn't wake up at all. She didn't stir at all.
Not while the incident happened. She definitely woke up when I let loose the scream.
Yeah, that brings back a memory to me. My brother used to be in a bunk bed with me, and I used to get these things when I was a kid as well, obviously. And he'd never wake up, and I would scream. You know, on some of the occasions, of the early occasions, he would never wake up, and he used to always amaze me that he would never wake up. You know, so yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
So you see these things now, and this has been going on in your house. Did your sister start seeing things then after that? Was it an ongoing thing?
No, not for her. In fact, most people in my family, short of my grandparents, nobody else really seen them. My mom had a couple ghost stories that she would tell us when we were children. My dad never seen any of those, but he had heard the Sasquatch that was out behind our house, you know, the knocking and the howling and everything else. So he believed me when I'd seen that. My mom, it was one of those things where it was taboo for her to talk about it. And it was very rare you'd get her to say something. And once she would, then she'd never talk about it again. But she had experience with one UFO once and one ghost incident in the house. And other than that, that was it. My grandmother, on the other hand, she had a lot of experiences with the ghost that we aptly named George. My grandfather, he just didn't believe in it, and he never really noticed it. Even the coffee cup incident that we could talk about later, even that, to this day, he saw that on Dave Scott, and he watched the video, and he's like, I don't remember that. Whether it's selective, thinking about it, or it's, the paranormal can do interesting things to the brain. So it's just a blockout for him.
So your mum has seen things as well. Has that been an ongoing thing? Has she said that to you? Has she always seen things?
No, she only seen it once. And what's interesting is it was just a story about another cup that was sitting on a table, and it would spin. And she told me that because I had always hear the doors opening inside the house, the cabinets in the kitchen, rustling around of silverware. One strummed my guitar that was in a case in my closet. I'd always hear these things, the darkness outside the door. I always slept when I was younger, before 10 years old, I would sleep with lights on in my room, little plug-in lamps. And the light would actually bleed into the hallway. Well, when the entities or any kind of beings would show up, I knew it because I could feel it. And then I would look at the door, and then you couldn't see past the door anymore. It was like pitch black. And that's happened to me quite a few times. In fact, it's happened to me out in the world and not just in my house.
Yeah. An all-encompassing, surrounding you sort of oppressive blackness. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that.
Yep.
So did your parents ever spoke to you about, did you get any body marks on you when you were a child, or anything at all? Any, 3 little dots or bruising that you couldn't explain, or anything like that?
Nothing that I ever noticed. I hear a lot of people that do get those, and it's very interesting because now I've been chasing this for so long that I had wished that I had something like that happen. And I know a lot of people would disagree or not think that's a smart thing to do, but I'm more chasing them often than not. So I have looked, I've checked myself over. I've had plenty of x-rays on my body, so I know there's nothing in it. But no, I've never had any kind of weird scratches, marks, scars, anything.
Okay, what sort of location were you living in when you were a child when all this was going on? Were you in a rural location in the middle of nowhere type thing, or were you in a built up area?
So the ET incident that happened, the gray in the middle of the night, that was in a place that's now called, they just changed the name years and years ago. It used to be called Central Valley. It's Shasta Lake City now. It's part of Shasta County, which is Northern California, where Shasta Lake is. And that was just in the middle of a normal town. I mean, it wasn't a big town, but there was plenty of houses around me. So I was in a town, like a proper town. And then when the one on Buckeye happened with Bigfoot, that was where I was a little bit further out. There was, acreage and a canyon behind our house of manzanita and stuff like that. So there wasn't a lot of houses out where we lived at that time. Then most of the ghost experiences that I had that were in the house with George, that was actually right in the middle of Redding, California. And I mean, there's houses all around us. We're on the southwest part of town. And yeah, it wasn't ever, all this stuff happened when I was living inside of a city. It never really happened on the outskirts or anything like that.
Yeah. There's plenty of people who say they've been abducted or they've had experiences who live in cities. So, I mean, that's nothing unusual. Yeah. So, how often was this going on for you then? I mean, you had the first one when you were 5. When would you say the next one was? Was there a period in between, or was it a regular occurrence?
No, that is a good question. It was actually a long time after that. I must have been 11 the next time it happened, maybe 10. And I think about 10 years old. And that's actually the next real big sighting I had was Bigfoot. And I think that was the biggest paranormal. That was broad daylight. I wasn't looking for him. And he just walked upon me. I think what happened on that one is he stumbled across me. I must have been upwind from him and he couldn't smell me. And he froze in place. But that was the biggest. But from 5 to 11 or 10, I got to think of how old I was. I was right at the end of being down. I must have been early 11. In between that time, I've been looking. I remember looking outside for UFOs. I remember looking for aliens because I knew they were real. I'd seen it, and nothing. I could never find them if I was looking for them. So for that few years, nothing really happened to me.
So I get the same thing. If I try and see them, I can't see a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If I just ignore the fact that, I forget about them for a bit, all of a sudden they'll turn up. I've noticed that. If I go outside and I'm going out to the post box on the corner of my house, and I just look up, that's the sort of time I'll see them. Or I'm taking the rubbish out, that's when I'll see them. If I go outside and I purposefully take a camera outside, not a hope.
Nope.
Very, very rare. I mean, it's weird. I have one occasion where that actually did happen, and it was within seconds of turning on a brand new camera, and there they were. It's like
that was meant to be.
That one was meant to be. It was a night vision camera, and it was like a test, and it was yes, you can see us if you use these cameras type thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So do you go outside purposely with cameras or with friends and try and see these things?
No, my son, my 11-year-old son, he likes going out there and he wants to see one so bad. And so we have a fairly large deck on the second story of our home. And so we have a pretty good view of the sky, and we have a big lake that our deck kind of looks over. And so, because I know they like water, I don't purposely go out with cameras. I've caught one on camera before. I remember just a few years ago, I was living over in a place called Grants Pass, Oregon, another part of Southern Oregon. And a lady, it was to start the story off, a bunch of kids were breaking into cars. And they didn't really get anything from us. They did get into our truck, but it was just minor, but I don't really want them getting into my things. So I was talking to a neighbor of mine. She's like, oh yeah. And she used to own a big farm and trying to keep the coyotes away from the animals that she had there. She had bought these really, really nice military grade binoculars, the kind that clip on the helmet, night vision. And she let me borrow one of the sides, and she goes, oh yeah, just play around with it. And so I put a battery in it, and I just happened to go outside and look up at that thing. And it's amazing what you can see with a night vision camera, just looking up in the stars. Yeah. But the amount of things that were moving up there, you take it away from your eye and you can't see them. you put it up there, and that's actually one of the times that I've seen a triangle with no lights on it, and very, very, very high up in the sky. I would say probably in the reaches of space, and I couldn't tell you how big it was. I could just definitely see the silhouette of a triangle just kind of cruising along, and it wasn't even pointing like a plane. It was just kind of at an angle, just floating along up there. And I watched it for a little bit and disappeared. Watched all the other lights that fly by that you can't see with the naked eye. It's amazing.
Yeah, I've always wanted to get my hands on some of those military night vision. Really cool.
$5,000.
Yeah, I've looked into it. I know.
I had one for Christmas off my wife. It was about £650, but it's a Sionex camera, and I recommend if you've got the budget for it, pick one of those up. You can get them on eBay cheap, secondhand ones, and they're color night vision, and it is superb. They could do with a bit more, zoom on it or an auto zoom, but apart from that, it is a really good camera. Yeah. I would definitely recommend that. So, you're living in a rural location now, then, are you, Grant?
Yeah, I live in Klamath Falls, Oregon. I just live on the south side of town. There's a couple of very large lakes. It's all Klamath Lake. You have Upper and Lower Klamath, and I live right off the lake on the south side of town.
So are you near Mount Shasta?
Yes.
Shasta County.
Yep.
Right.
So Mount Shasta, I've moved to Florida. I've been to different places across the United States. But Mount Shasta that's my mountain. I call it everybody that lives around here. Oh, that's my mountain. There's a lot of things. It's a drawing. There's a power to that mountain, and a lot of people even Dr. Greer's gone there, trying to show people the UFOs that happened. The clouds alone that hang over that mountain look like UFOs, and I can't see it right now because there's actually a hill between me and the mountain. I kind of live real close to the lake, and then there's a small hill, and if I actually just drive a couple minutes, then I got a full view of Mount Shasta.
Wow, stunning! I mean, that's a location that a lot of people they talk about holes opening up in the mountain and craft going inside, and a famous location. Yeah.
Is that where the Gilliland Ranch is at the foot of Mount Shasta, or am I getting it confused?
I don't know about the Gilliland Ranch. I don't know the location of that. I know there's a lot of people that do go to Mount Shasta. I mean, Shasta City is right on the base of the mountain, and a lot of people go up there. I've been up there skiing a lot. A lot of the hikers, you can get up to the very top. It's quite a trek. There's a lot of people that see the holes in the mountain. There's mounds there. The Lemurians, you'll get a lot of stories about the Lemurians that live under the mountain, and the people that come out of nowhere and just help the stranded trekkers. And some people were invited inside to see the city. And there's a lot of interesting stories with that mountain. But if you actually go to it, I mean, I know it'd be quite the trek for you guys, but if you just stood in front of it and just, you can feel something's going on with that mountain.
Can you hear noises when you're around there then? Is there noises coming from underground like you hear about Skinwalker?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yes. You get all that sort of thing going on?
Mm-hmm. It's more of and I don't know how to explain it. In fact, there's a couple places that do that. And there's one down in, there's a place called Sheep Creek down by Whiskeytown Lake or Sheep Camp. You don't want to go to the camp. That's not anywhere near the water, but there's a little spot that I can take people to and show them where it is. If you stay the night there, you'll hear it as well. Everybody's heard it. I have friends that actually live now in Alaska, but she will never go back there. That's where you'll see the orbs, the orange orbs that are there, and other different creatures that will live out there. You'll hear the knocking of Bigfoot and the howls and things like that. But what's underground is what's very interesting. So if you can, you can even have a fire, but usually you want it to be pretty calm. And you're so far away from Redding itself and the freeway. So there's from Redding to the coast, I think it's called 299. There is a highway that intersects to the north side of the lake. Well, where you're at is you're quite a few miles out in the middle of the woods on the south side of the lake. So you don't really get any noises from cars, machinery, the city of Redding. You don't even get light pollution. It's really nice out there. And when you start hearing what comes out from underground, that's when it'll spook a lot of people. It sounds like machinery. and it's a boom, like a someone's digging, or something's running underground. You can audibly hear it, and everybody in the party, doesn't matter who's with you, every single person will be able to hear it. It is not selective by any means on who hears it.
I'm gonna have to look into that. Are there any military bases in that location?
Not down in Reading, no.
Okay, so you were saying about orange orbs. I mean, what sort of size have you seen those yourself, or is that something that's just folklore that people have seen in the locality?
I don't know if it's folklore. I have a few friends that have seen them. I've not seen the orange orbs myself. I've seen white ones, and I've heard tales of red ones as well, and some other colors. But usually, I think orange, and mine's kind of an off-white, almost yellow color. And then I've heard of some red down there, but they're about the size of a basketball. Some can be smaller, but they're actually pretty large, and they're not very far away from you. They'll be within 40, 50 feet. So it's something that you can really, you'll feel it first, obviously. You won't hear it. You won't hear it at all, but you'll feel it. And then it draws your attention. It's kind of magnetic.
So what are you feeling when you see those? Are you feeling that they're watching you, or they're just moseying along and just doing their own thing, or do you get the feeling that they've turned up to appear for you?
I don't think they just appear for me. I mean, some people might get that feeling. I don't think they're just I think they might be just watching everybody. I don't get the feeling of being watched, is what I'm trying to say. But I do. You get that buzzy feeling inside, kind of a vibrational feeling, and which is how most times I get when I know something's around me. Is I just kind of have that inner kind of heart flutter vibrational feeling.
Okay, so even if you've got your back turned to something, you'll feel it.
You'll know.
You'll know to turn your back and have a look. Yeah, or look
and
at the sky.
Oh yeah, I think that goes well. The sky one is a completely different feeling. So the ones that I see in the sky are usually happenstance. It's almost like something tells you, look up, and I could be playing on my phone. The many times that I have looked up, I usually try to get somebody that is there with me. I've had a few sightings in California or in Reading that have completely bewildered me, where I was in a part of town where it was dark. It's a very dense part of the city of Reading. I'm just waiting for my ride. I was trying to get a ride. I went to a house with some friends, and I just didn't feel comfortable there, and I just wanted to leave. So I had called my girlfriend at the time and said, "Hey, do you mind come get me?" "Oh yeah, where you at?" And so I told her. I said, "All right," because I had left my bike at another place. So while I was waiting for her, I waiting on the main busy road there, and there was no cars. It was just that's the main thoroughfare. I had an opportunity where I was not doing much, and I was like, what? And I just looked up. That's all I did was look up, and I seen it looked like a rocket. No noise, nothing. It was insanely bright, hyper white, going, just straight up into the air. No afterburners. I live by an Air Force base now, and they have F-15s. I've seen, F-18s, F-16s, the Harrier, the U-2, A-10s. I see jets all the time, every day. So I know this wasn't a jet. A gentleman was walking past me, and I said, hey, and of course it's 11 o'clock at night, and you don't know who's talking to you. And he was a little bit like, what do you want? I said, it's nothing like that. I said, what is that? And I pointed up the air, and he looked, and he actually got right next to me, and we both watched it just going straight up. And then it stopped right above the clouds. I watched it for about 5 seconds, and then it went lateral and just shot straight and went gone. And it's super bright. Like it would light up the clouds that were under it as it went over them, because there was a few wispy clouds there. It was a beautiful night. The moon was out, the clouds were lit up, and then this bright thing just was shooting straight up in the air, stopped, and gone as fast. You could track it, but it was fast, and it was very interesting. I was excited about it. And the gentleman that I happened to stop, he's like, "No, I'm good. Yeah, I don't." He walked away. He didn't want nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
That's the experience you get with a lot of people that just you can't understand how they would. Everyone says they want to see a UFO, but you point one out to them, and all of a sudden they get very blasé about it, and it's it means nothing to them, sort of thing, and go away, crazy person.
Yeah.
You know, that's the sort of, it's like they're being told that, you know, don't pay any attention, ignore this person who's trying to show you this. I've been in lots of occasions where I've tried to show people, and even in groups, and they're just not interested. And there's been emerald objects in the sky, an emerald object, you know, not a normal color, that it might be something else. I mean, you know, completely abstract, really strange object that they should be interested in, that's just going over their heads.
Yeah.
And they've had absolutely no interest. It's really, really strange how that happens. I mean, it's got to be that whatever it is affecting them. That's the only explanation I've ever been able to come up with. They are being affected by it, or their perceptions being shown something different, that they're not seeing it as anything strange. It's really, really weird how people react.
It is. I've had actually. There's a 2-part story that I have. That one time I was at Shasta Lake, at the Jones Valley finger side of it, off Dry Creek Road. If anybody ever wants to go out there, or Jones Valley Road, sorry. And I can show you exactly the spot I was standing in. I had one of my friend's moms, actually a couple of my friends. She was just venting. You know, the kids were terrorizing her, and she just wanted to have a beer. So we went out to the lake real quick. I was going out there anyway, and she just came with me. While she was venting, I was just kind of drinking my one solitary beer, and I happened to catch a light in the sky, kind of an off yellow, and it was doing figure eights, but it was static. Like it didn't move out of the region it was in. It would just do, you know, vertical figure eights, and then would do horizontal figure eights, and it was timed. It almost seemed like it was like a clock. It would do this for a certain period of time, or a certain lapse or duration, and then it would stop. And I'd watch that a couple times over and over again. And then I started realizing, I told Shirley, I said, hey, you know, what do you see up there? I always need somebody to see this with me, just to make sure it's not just my, you know, I'm having a beer, who knows? And she sees it too. And, oh, that's weird. What is that? And then every time it would stop, I noticed out of the corner of my eye, up on top of another ridge or a mountain, another one was there, much closer to the top of the hill. And it would mimic it. I didn't record any of this back then. There was no video cameras, or I mean, not video cameras, but cell phone cameras. And so I didn't have any way to record it to see if this was doing 10 laps of one movement and this was mimicking it, or if they were trying to communicate. It almost seemed like they were communicating. But I knew the roads there really well. And so I decided, hey, let's jump in the car. And we had a little SUV. Okay, we're going to go check this out. She wasn't really fond of that idea. And as I've told everybody before, I'm gung ho when it comes to this. I want to be that guy that says, hey, you know, I don't want a fire in the sky incident, you know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, if it happens, it happens. But we ended up going up there, and every now and then I catch glimpses through the trees. You know, I'm on a fire road, and we get up there. We started getting really close to it, and it's late at night. I'm far enough. There's no light pollution from any cities, nothing like that. And my lights worked fine. My car was running great, and everything went black around the whole car, like a veil. My lights, you could actually see shine in the dust. You could see the dust was built up when I stopped from the dirt. And so it shined through that. You could see the actual beams of light. You could see my tail lights, but you couldn't see anything else. You couldn't see the ground. You couldn't see the trees. You couldn't see the sky. It was like a veil went over the car. That spooked Shirley. Go ahead.
Was there any missing time for that event?
Not that I recall. I don't think we had any missing time. I think it was more like a stop sign is what I think happened there. There wasn't a lapse in conversation. There was we didn't get home later than normal. It was, we need to go now. And that was Shirley's idea. we need to get out of here. And being on a fire road, I knew I was on a straight path. So I just backed straight up, and within about 10, 12 feet, everything popped back to life. Or I could see everything again. And that's when I knew, okay, we got to go. And so we just turned around and left. That was kind of like their way of saying, hey, this is where you got to stop. I mean, it blocked completely the road. I couldn't see where I was going at that point. So no matter how hard I would have tried to go further, I probably would have, even if I did a mile an hour, I probably would have ran off the road or something like that. You couldn't see anything. It was as black as a dark velvet. It was dark. It was wild. And then 2 weeks later, I had her kids, actually, Shirley's kids, in the car with their significant others. So there's about 5 of us all together. And unfortunately, um, all but one of those people that were in that car besides me are now passed. They ended up getting in an accident. But long story short, we're driving from a place called Anderson, California, which is attached by a couple different roads to Redding. So it's only a few minute drive, 10 minutes. And there's a road called Airport Road, very long, straight. Anybody can look it up on a map. We were going northbound on that road. And I'm driving a Dodge Ram Charger, which is kind of a larger version of an SUV, a Dodge truck. I looked in the rearview mirror on the path or the driver's door, and I seen it again. But this time it was much closer. The object was doing a horizontal figure 8, and that's what caught my eye. And so I slowed the truck down. There's nobody on this road but us. And I told everybody, as soon as I got to a stop, they're like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" I said, "Hey, I don't want anybody to scream or freak out, but I just need you to look behind us and tell me what you see," knowing I have to have someone see it too. Yeah. And dang it, that thing decided right then, right as everybody turned around, to drop 300 feet straight to the ground and start coming towards us fast. And I've never heard anybody freak out as much as all them kids. We just, the truck is slow, and I mean, it would do 80 miles an hour if I tried, and it did every bit of 80, 85 miles an hour trying to get away from this. And we ended up taking a little short detour, a kind of a 45-degree right turn on I can't remember that street name, but it takes you to another street called Hartnell. And by the time we got to Hartnell, it was gone. It didn't fly up in the air. It didn't. I mean, there is an airport there, and I've had other people, "Oh, it's just a plane landing." The airport runway and, airport drive, airport road that we were on they're pretty far apart. You have the whole main complex of the airport between its runway and this road. And so this thing was literally on the road. A plane's not going to land on the road. I mean, it's not a good thing that it happened on that particular road at that particular location. I wish it would have happened somewhere else. It would have been a little bit more, people would have been like, "Oh, that's more interesting now," because everybody just thinks it's a plane, but planes don't have lights that do figure 8s.
Do you get scared by this?
No.
Is no fear? Are you exhilarated? Do you get excited by it?
The UFOs that I see, the craft that I see, I like technology. I'm really super interested in what they have, how they do it. It's mind-boggling to me. I was a mechanic for years. So the technology itself and how it works, that's what really gets me. Now, short of saying that, if another gray just happened to appear as solidly as it did when I was 5 years old, now I can't be quite honest to say I wouldn't be scared to death to see that live and living color again. I'm a little nervous about that, but I have seen other things in my room that don't scare me. So it's kind of a toss up on how I'm going to react if it happens.
So you've got a family, you've got 3 children and a wife. Mm-hmm. Are you worried that this is going to affect the kids? No. Come into your home and affect your kids, or
no?
No,
the way I look at it is these things have been around forever. We have ancient texts about them. Even our first written language, or the syntax from the Sumerians, if you can believe what some of the authors out there say about it, the translations of how that happened. These things, you got paintings from even as Da Vinci has paintings of UFOs. There's painting of UFOs in Egypt. There's painting of UFOs down or actually sculptures in rocks, of chiseled rocks, of guys carrying briefcases with helmets on. I mean, these things have been around for a very long time. If they were out to hurt us, they could have done so easily. I mean, they can outperform us in every way. There's a reason why our military right now, they had to sit there and say, yes, this is real. But we don't know where it comes from. We don't know what it is, whether they do or not. That's neither here nor there, because they're not going to be the ones that are the disclosure. It's the disclosure is happening as we speak by us, and so we're the ones that see it. We might not have as many scientists or higher up people that can understand these things as they do, or the money to back that up. But one of these days, it's going to come out there, and it's more of a changing thing. I think our kids are going to be able to handle it a lot better than we can. In fact, most of our adults, if you look at the pandemic that happened, supermarket shelves being empty just over a pandemic. If you could imagine an extraterrestrial or an interterrestrial being making themselves aware or known and to the public, it's probably not going to end up very well for a while, but we will get over it. We will figure it out and come to terms with it.
But what do you think the purpose of that we'll call it a grey that turned up when you were a child? I mean, they don't just turn up for no reason. They came there for a purpose, and it came to see you, and it's obviously doing something to you or interacting with you, but you've got no more memory of what happened after that. Don't you find the fact that I mean, I'm quite happy to have a memory blank as well, to be honest with you. I think that's probably a good thing that they almost do me a favor that I don't remember some of the things that went on. I prefer not to. Have you been regressed at all?
I have not. I've been toying around with the idea. I have a hard time with calming my mind to a certain degree. Getting let's see. There's a gentleman that came to a college that was doing the what do you call that? Where you get hypnosis. There we go. He was doing hypnosis, and I got picked for the study. And I can't calm my mind down enough. It's like my left side of my brain is too active to let them bring me down that far. It's too much of a filter over there. I got to shut that down somehow. And the getting regressed, I would love to do it. I'm a little bit worried about doing it because you never know what you're going to find. Like if you open up that box, are you going to be able to shut it, or do you even really want it open? I think after 37 years of dealing with this after that incident, I believe that maybe I'm ready to see what exactly happened then. Who knows? It's kind of a toss-up.
Yeah, I've always avoided it, to be honest with you. I don't fancy I prefer the idea of not knowing now, just in case it is something terrible. You then got to go into therapy, that does put me off. So you where is your family tree come from? Where are your roots from originally? Are you did they emigrate in from which part of Europe?
Germany. Germany. Yeah.
Okay. So you've got a Celtic connection. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a little eighth Native American, the Northern California region, Wintu natives. So my grandfather, who's more than half Native, and he's half Native and half German, and that's where the German side comes from. And so I got a little bit of Native, and the rest is German, and then some other scattering of European descendants on my dad's side.
Okay, so do you experience sleep paralysis ever?
Yeah, this is a good one. So sleep paralysis to me is actually I get it it's very, very, very common with me. If I don't have it at least once a month, I'm surprised. And I didn't call it sleep paralysis. I didn't know that's what people called it for years. In fact, until after I met my wife and a couple of years ago, when I was 40, I figured out what she was talking about, because she would just say, I had some sleep paralysis last night, and I hate it when I do that because then I can't wake up. I'm like, I didn't understand what she was talking about, but I've been going through that since I was a little kid. And I mean, from shortly after, so I went to live with my grandparents when I was around 11 years old, which is right after I'd seen Bigfoot. And so the sleep paralysis started pretty much around that time. And that's when I started getting the ghost. I started seeing all the things in the house, the strumming of my guitar, the opening and closing of doors inside the house, whether it be night or daytime. I mean, it's happened in the broad daylight right in front of me. Within 10 feet of me, the door would just click, wide open, shut. And that house was brand new. Everything was level in it. Doors didn't just open and creak. So, but that's when I started having the sleep paralysis. And so the way it starts with me, when I was that young, I would hide under my covers. I was a belly sleeper at the time. That was my safety. And I would always put the covers over my head when I would feel it. And it was very frightening when I was that young. I didn't know how to get out from under the pressure, and to the point where I couldn't even talk. It would completely freeze me. But I was 100% awake, which is why I didn't ever consider it sleep paralysis. Oh, sorry. And I went through that hundreds and hundreds of times as a child. And then finally, I started learning over the course of time of how to get out from under it. I knew that something was there every time that happened, whether I seen the flickering on the wall, the door would go dark. There was always something there. And over time, I started getting more annoyed with it than anything else. And I would purposely push my way through it and break the bond, break the hold. Later in years, I started seeing the people that come along with that. They would make themselves aware. Usually it was a shadow, and not always in a place that's shadowy, like a corner of a room or a closet door that's open, because that can kind of play tricks on the minds. These guys are more bold, much more bold than that. They will stand in front of a window and you will literally see the apparition, the outline, the silhouette of this thing. And they don't care anymore, especially with my wife. And she's seen the exact identical two that I have. It's usually the same two that we've been seeing, except for one particular night I've seen a lot more than that. But they will hold you down, or they just try to get in your brain and shut the ability to move. Like, it feels like everything weighs 1,000 pounds. And they almost make it seem like if you move, they want you to feel as frightened and terrified to move that particular body part as possible. That's the way it used to feel. Nowadays, they don't have that kind of effect on me anymore. So
is it just your eyes that you can move?
I don't know anymore. I can move everything now. When they try to get a hold of me like that, I can break bonds. I can look around. I can talk. I can move. They don't have as good of a firm grip on me as they do my wife, because she has to fight to pull herself out of it, where I'm so used to it, I'll turn around and try to touch one of them, and which is actually what I do now. When I see them, if they're close enough, which the last few times they've been getting pretty bold. They've been getting really close to me, and I've been able to put a hand through 3 of them now.
So what do you think those are? Do you think that's some sort of dimensional entity or ET? What do you think it is?
That's a good question. For a long time, I thought they were ghosts, and it's just what I related them to, especially the darker ones, the lower vibrational ones. Some people put it. I've actually asked another gentleman on another podcast in one of the chats. I said, well, what are these? And he was actually on the podcast, and he responded, "Those are grays, just another form of the grays," which is a very interesting concept. The only thing that I can tell you is they're not physical, and I put my hand through 3 of them, especially when I'm trying to go to bed. Like I told you, I have a hard time going to sleep. The first one I put my hand through was more of a darker image. He was just standing right next to me, him, her, whatever it was. I've heard some people call it the hag. I don't relate to that because it doesn't seem like a female to me. This is more of a male gender. And I put my hand right through it, and it popped. It goes away. It fades out of existence. So whether it's either an astral projection or it's a dimensional being, it could be. That's not my favorite one. That one, I have a little bit more sinister of a feel from it. But now I get to the point where I try to get them first. I make it a game. And the last 2 that happened to me, which was actually just recently, that's an interesting one. So I call them the shimmer people, the shimmering people. And a lot of people ask me, well, what does it look like? It looks like glitter, like see-through glitter, water, but not there. You ever seen the movie The Predator? If you watch the movie The Predator, when the predator cloaks itself, you can still see it. If you put clear glitter on top of that, that's what these things look like. And they're a physical form. They have arms, they have legs, they have a torso, they have a neck, they have a head. They're there. They're a physical. Well, they're not physical because I've tried to touch 2 of them now. But you can see a definite outline of a projection of a physical being. The first time I really got a good touch on that, the first one that I tried to touch, we just moved into this house 2 months ago. So this is another house over in Grants Pass. And it was kneeling right beside the bed and I was facing the opposite direction. I was laying on my left side facing my wife, and I could feel the pressure, the sleep paralysis, it trying to get in and hold me down and do whatever they do. And I wasn't having it that night. And I turned around. I was actually quite surprised to see that it was face to face, kneeled right beside the bed, right next to me. And I put my hand right out through it. And when they disappear, it's actually quite pretty. They shimmer out of existence. It's like a puff of of glitter. It's actually quite pretty. That was a few months back, and then 2
So are
months
they
ago.
actually speaking to you at all? Do you get any messages, or do you get anything at all? You
Nope.
got no real interaction apart from them basically turning up and staring at you, or do they ever touch you?
I don't know if they touch me. I don't feel a physical touch from them. I think the more of the touch that is mental. I think that's how sleep paralysis works. They're in your head, and they're able to shut down certain, chemicals, or even activate certain chemicals in your brain, which gives you that feeling, because your brain's phenomenal. It can make you feel pain when there's nothing hurting you. I think they have some type of mental ability to hold you down that way. They don't do it physically. There's nothing that they're doing. They're usually standing far away from you when they're doing it. So it's some type of force that we're not aware of. But other than just that, and watching us, that's all we've ever seen. My wife, she can't stand it. She hates it, because they're always just standing over her watching her, or they're watching me sometimes. She'll get the feeling, and I won't know about it, or I'll get it. And I'll usually, now that I'm trying to get at them, it'll wake her up, because I move the whole bed when I'm going after them. And but other than that, I don't know what they're doing. The very last one that just happened 2 months ago, my brother-in-law, who's actually in the backyard right now, he was at work. I was moving all my stuff. I had left Grants Pass a little late at night to actually make the return trip. It's just about 2 hours of a drive. It's getting cold. I dumped everything off, all our belongings into a box, a pod here that we're storing it in until we could buy this house. And he was gone, so I decided I was going to stay the night at his home. He has 3 dogs, and what's interesting is the dogs, they stayed asleep this whole time when this happened. There was noises coming through the wall. On the other side of the wall was just his backyard, and it sounded like there was deer out there trying to bed down. They were making some noise. I banged on the wall a couple times trying to get him to stop. I think it was probably 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, and laying on my left side again, facing his bathroom, and I felt the pressure, the sense of the being there. And I was a little irritated because the deer, I couldn't get to sleep. I'm tired. And I just, what do you want now? Is exactly what I said. But when I turned around and said that, and I swiped at it, it was right next to me. It was, laying with me, like in bed, but propped up on its left elbow a little bit, and just sitting there with his head kind of tilted, looking at me. And I went right through it. And of course, it poofed into a billion little sparkles. I just looked at him like, that was weird. He was that close to me, or she, or whatever it is. And what I do find interesting is when I do see something like that, immediately the feeling goes away, but I can go right to sleep. I have no idea.
Do you get things go missing in your home at all?
Good question.
Yeah, no, not that I've known. I haven't noticed anything missing.
Okay, I get things taken just as I'm about to use them.
Really?
They've been there 10 minutes earlier, and they never get moved, and it's like they have fun, and they'll take that thing, and I have to say, I laugh at them now. Can you put it back? And I go make a coffee, and I come back, and there it is.
So the coffee, they'll move things, but I in my home, I haven't seen them take anything. Let's see, what year was this? 2000, between 2001 and 2. I think late 2001, early 2002. I was at my grandparents' house, who live here in Klamath Falls, Oregon. This is where this happened. I believe the ghost liked to follow them, or followed my grandmother. And he was making coffee. I was eating cereal at the bar, and he was on the other side of the bar making his coffee. Like clockwork, every morning, he went to get the milk, turned around to pour the milk in the coffee. Coffee was gone. I didn't see anything move. I didn't hear anything move. He was standing right there. I was just reading something and eating my breakfast. So we go on a search for this coffee. I mean, he asked me, son, did you move this? And no, I didn't touch it. And he finally finds it. And he had a little bit of a distress in his voice, kind of a shakiness. Now, this is a man that is a diehard Christian, and he does not believe in ghosts at all. He doesn't believe in them. And he was all in the back bedroom, in the master bedroom or bathroom back there, all the way on the other side of the house. And I go in there, and he's like, son, you got to look at this. And there's a coffee cup sitting on the counter in the bathroom. And in his mind, he's like, I don't know, or I don't remember moving this here. And I said, well, you didn't, Dad. Do you believe me now? No, I'll just keep. And he took it, picked it up. He watched that other video that I had been on with Dave, Dave Scott, and he literally was watching it and said, I don't remember that. And I was like, he never will. He just doesn't believe in UFOs. He doesn't believe in extraterrestrial life. He doesn't believe in anything of any other type of phenomenon except for God. And so he blocks it out, or maybe it blocks it out for him. I don't know which.
And how long did it take to find that coffee cup? And was the water in it still hot?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It was about 5 minutes is all it took him. It's about maybe even a little less than that. It wasn't very long.
Okay. Because I've had very similar things happen. And then when I found my coffee cup, my coffee's still hot. And it's taken me, it's been gone for ages. Yeah, I've had that. So
that's actually let me think about that, because I mean, if it's been gone for that long and it's still hot, I didn't see this thing move. I mean, it could be very well possible that it doesn't actually physically move in the sense of on a plane, like what we think. We pick up a cup and we move it from one side to the other. As fast as their ships move and the technology they have, it could just be like an interdimensional blink. So the coffee could have moved in a second by itself, but just like they can probably go back and forth in time, all they did was take it from one time shift and put it into another. So the coffee's still piping hot and it's only 2 seconds old, where it took you 10 minutes to find it. Any of that's possible. The amount of stuff that we see nowadays, and the fact that the military can't even figure out how they move or how those things work, anything's possible.
Yeah, I agree. So why do you think they're paying attention to you and your wife? I mean, how long has your wife been seeing these things? And she's obviously an experiencer as well, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
When she gets sleep paralysis, does she describe to you exactly when it happens to me, I'll wake up in a jolt. I can't breathe. Literally, I can't breathe at all. My mouth will be wide open as far as it can be open. And all I can move is my eyes and literally staring at whatever it is. And it's a terrifying experience. I cannot move until whatever this is allows me to move or leaves. I am frozen solid. I mean, when I was a child, it would be a bit different. I would start feeling like I would get weightless, and I would start floating, and then I would blank, and then I would be in another place, and I would see eyes around me. I'd never see a grey. I've seen things that look like grey's eyes, but they would just be eyes. I wouldn't see a body. I wouldn't see a head, hands, anything like that. It would literally be in a darkened room with just enough light that I could see the glint of the eyes.
Yeah. Did you see any colors?
They'd be coming in. No colors, just a darkened. The impression of a doorway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but not being able to see, you couldn't quite see it. Do you know what I mean? It would be over there, and my eyes couldn't move down enough to be able to see, but I could see them coming in and around. I don't know whether they were all swirling around me or there was lots of them. Yeah, and they were just all coming in and out. It was a weird experience. Have you ever had anything like that?
Yeah, so you're reminding me something of a little bit. That's why I asked you about the color. And usually it's only one color, and I'm not talking like a psychedelic effective color, like the shirts and stuff. No, that's why I asked you about that, because the one I get on certain aspects. So what you're explaining with the sleep paralysis, that's what I consider sleep paralysis. When you wake up in that form, that's a scary and horrific feeling. I've had that happen a couple times. That's what I would describe sleep paralysis as. And so what happens to us now, I think my wife's actually kind of getting away from the sleep paralysis, but that'll happen to her too, where she wakes up just like you're saying. And that's frightening. You wake up, you can't move, you're frozen. And no matter what you do, you have to let the feeling kind of fade away before you can pull yourself out of it. Whereas mine's, I get that feeling, but I'm fully awake when it happens. I haven't gone to sleep yet at all. And then I can maneuver within that. But what you're saying with the eyes, I've had quite a few experiences about that. Hey, do you astral travel at all?
No. Well, I wouldn't know. I had an experience when I was 15, and I haven't had a dream since I was 15. I mean, I literally got told the other day to take some tablets, some I can't think what they're called now, but to take some of these ginseng tablets or something to see if I could start being able to dream again. But I haven't been able to dream since I was 15 when I had a missing time event.
Really?
So I've no idea, what happens basically when I go to sleep. or anything. No.
Yeah, don't do ginseng. That'll keep you up.
I'm not sure what they are.
Oh, you got it right there. It's melatonin.
Oh no, ginkgo
Oh,
biloba or
yeah,
something.
yeah, ginkgo biloba.
Yeah.
I've never tried that stuff. No, so it's interesting that you don't dream. Um,
Yeah.
I have very, 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 very vivid dreams. I've had a few of them come true, and I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, you have that deja vu," and everybody gets that every now and then. It's very rare. I've had deja vu maybe 5, 6 times in my whole life, but I've had very vivid dreams. I remember every single one of them that I have in that form. Some of them I have that are decent, good dreams. I wake up and, oh, that was great. And if you start moving around, you'll forget them fairly quickly. So the vivid ones that I believe that it's not really a dream. Either I'm astral traveling on accident, which I know I've done before. I can't do it on purpose. I can't shut my brain down enough to meditate. But when I'm sleeping, I think that's when it's happening. And I go to different places and different views. And you kind of reminded me of that when you said the room, and the room that I remember seeing, minus the eyes, but the same feeling that you had where you couldn't look all the way down and everything. I was actually looking through somebody else's eyes, and it was blue. And in fact, I'd had another experience with the same place, but I finally got out of that room, and everything was dark. All the lights on this plane were blue, and everything was the architecture was very interesting. Everything was blocks. There's nobody slept in beds. It was quite a very interesting dream, for lack of a better word. But I've had a lot of these, and it's reoccurring. Some of these are very reoccurring dreams where I would go back and I remember them just like I was standing right here before you. Very vivid, very vivid. And I believe that whatever the power is that's out there, if you're not having dreams, then they might be doing stuff with you, or they might have, I don't know, they might have taken the ability away or hidden you from it. You might be too powerful, and they don't want you seeing what they're doing.
Yeah, it's a weird one. It is a weird one. I mean, the dreams that I used to get before that happened were all about this subject.
Really?
Anyway, they're not. If somebody says, "Oh, I dreamed I bought a new car," or things like that. My dreams were never like that.
Yeah,
my
I
dreams.
never had that
My
either.
dreams were all that I would see, mass sightings of UFOs or orbs or ghosts or all things to do with this. That's the only thing I've ever dreamt about. Yeah.
Yeah, you have something going on. It's very interesting. 15 years old, and they just stopped you from doing that, and that's all the dreams you ever had. That's very interesting. I'd have to study up a little bit more on that.
Let's go into your Bigfoot encounter then. So what age were you when you saw this, and let's describe that, because I said to you when you were on the show with Dave, I think that this is all related. Yeah, I think these things alter perceptions, manifest as whatever. That maybe the Bigfoot's travel as orbs. I asked you that question, if you remember. Let's go into what you saw though, and then you can tell us what you think they are, and how they're able to hide from us.
Oh, that's easy.
Yeah,
their hiding capabilities are above par. You hear all the stories about. You can go all the way over to the Inuits, back in the 50s when they first really started coming around, when people started listening to, the big man, or the wild man, I think they called it up there. They're pretty big. I think mine just happenstance across me. I was playing in some red dirt, down in Shasta County, of all places. There's a little canyon right behind my house and a whole ton of acreage of manzanita trees. And
just stop you there.
Yeah.
Where do you say red dirt? So is that like there's a lot of iron content in the area, or is there a strong magnetic anomalies in the area by any chance?
And I'm glad you asked that question, because not a lot of people catch that. And that's one of the things I was actually wanting to talk about a little bit was, UFOs, and a lot of these sightings happen over water. Of course, out in the oceans, when they're far enough from land, they're messing around with the warships and whoever's out there, the military. But when you see them above land, airports or any kind of interesting places, there's been some ties to a lot of iron mineral in the dirt. They'll hang around a lot of iron. And in Shasta County, it is a lot of iron. That dirt will stain your clothes red. I mean, or orange. And it's just there's a lot of anomalies in that whole area, and it could be due to the dirt, it could be due to all kinds of stuff, electromagnetics, the ley lines of the earth. But on this day, I happened to be playing around that red dirt. I wasn't very far from behind the house in the Manzanita. There's a little clearing. I had a little BB gun and some, cars and GI Joes that I was playing with, and being a preteen, I had this awful feeling. I mean, it wasn't even an awful feeling. It was just like an urge, like a good urge. But I didn't hear anything. It wasn't really windy. I didn't smell anything. And I just happened to look left. What is that? And I look over, and I saw the legs first. So the trunk of the Manzanita is, be a couple feet, 2-3 feet high. And I saw the bottom of its legs, his calf area. And he was gray, like a gray alien, but shaggy. He had hair, and he was looking at me from over the top of this bush. So his body extended up past the top branches of this thing. I couldn't go back now to give you an accurate height, because obviously that was, a little over 20 years ago, or actually more than that, 30 years ago. So these bushes either aren't there. After looking on a map of where we live, there's housing development that have been installed since then. So all that's pretty much been taken away. But my guesstimate's between 8 and 10 feet, somewhere around there. And he was staring right at me. He was stock still. I got a good look at his shoulders. I got a good look at his body once he started running. He was built like an athlete. He was not fat, but he wasn't thin. He was, he was pretty bulky. It just really fit, extraordinarily fit. You could totally tell.
Are you paralyzed at this point? Are you paralyzed with fear, or are you just shocked to see something and just studying it? How were you feeling when you saw this then?
I was unsure. I wasn't scared. It just a little shocking, like, oh, hey, what are you doing there? I just wasn't expecting it, so it's kind of a surprise. I didn't get any kind of foreboding messages or signals from him. I just kind of had that feeling like, oh, hey, let's check each other out for a minute. Kind of just a more of an inquisitive feeling. But I didn't know exactly what to do. I'm young. My house is, 80 feet behind me. And he's just standing there staring at me. And I can tell you a couple of things about him. It was there's shadow. I saw a shadow. So his actual physical form was there. That was blocking out the sun. He's, stock still. He was forward-facing eyes. He didn't look like a monkey to me. He just kind of looked more like a hairy man. But different, longer head, bigger proportions. I didn't really get a good look at his hands or his feet, but most of his body, his neck and head and stuff, and his shoulders were nice and rounded, big shoulders, strong individual. So I had a little pellet gun that was sitting, the little Red Ryder pellet gun sitting next to me, BB gun. Didn't have any bullets in it, or little pellets or whatever you call them. But I just nonchalantly reached down. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I wasn't really scared. And that's when it went from me to the gun, and it knows gun. There's definitely there's a consciousness behind the eyes. There's intelligence behind the eyes. He has the ability to know what you got in your hand. And as soon as I went to pick that up, that was it for him. He's like, uh-oh, it's time to leave. And instead of like running directly away from me, he actually ran at a 45 in front of me, because I was facing south. And he ran right across me going to the southwest. And I got a good look at him at that point. That's when I actually noticed exactly how physical he was. And the most extraordinary thing happened when he did that. He was running through quite a bit of manzanita trees or bushes. And I barely heard him at all. The patting of his feet, he has a way of, I was jokingly saying, I've tried it before, which I have, try to run as fast as you can with being as quiet as you can. And I don't have the ability to do it, especially for as large as he is. And he was able to get away from me very quickly, almost to the point where at the further end, once he got behind a few more trees, it almost seemed like he had disappeared, but not like dematerialized. He just was able to camouflage himself extremely well. And I think that's what they have on their side, is the knowledge of how to use their body very, very efficiently. They're patting on their feet. I see a lot of these the molds that you see of the pictures of the Bigfoot tracks, and some of them are pretty hilarious. These things do not make When they step, it's not like a dinosaur. When you step down, the weight pushes the dirt up around the foot, so you see this perfect little berm of dirt around. That's not how feet print work. You go out in the mud and step on and dirt yourself, and you can see it. But he's got a very soft-footed way about him, and very graceful, very graceful.
Is that the one and only time you've seen one of these, or has it been something else? That was the one time, yeah.
The one time for the Bigfoot. Now I've heard some other stuff, the knocking of the wooden forest and things like that, and those don't really scare me. I've never heard the screams that you hear for shock value. I think is what people put those on YouTube for, or whatever media they're going to post those up on, where you have the guy out there looking at mushrooms or something, and you hear this horrendous screeching yell. I've never heard any of those, but I have heard some interesting noises in the woods that definitely come from something other than just normal creatures. Normal creatures don't do that on wood. It's very deliberate.
So do you think these things are coming through a dimensional portal or something like that? And like I said to you, I think I get the impression that these things travel as orbs. Yeah. I think this is all related to the things you had in your house, to the things you see in the forest, to the things you see in the sky. To me, this is all one phenomena. Yeah.
It could be. Slight of actually knowing where everything comes from, I couldn't put my finger on it. Some things seem more real than others. Getting a sight of Sasquatch, who was just checking me out, that the passiveness on that one, it was more of a curiosity, and it didn't seem like it was extraordinary at all. I mean, obviously, you say you just seen Bigfoot, that's pretty extraordinary. But it didn't seem like that. It just seemed like I just happened to cross him. Everybody up here in the Northwest, we talk about them all the time, all the way up into Canada, Alaska. They have a lot of sightings, even over in Russia, and over in Europe. I think they call it the Alba. They have sightings of something over there. I think these things are around. They could be tied in. I don't know if Bigfoot is going to just dematerialize into an orb. Of course, there's people that see, the helicopters that aren't there, or they can only see it. There's people that see the orbs, or the orbs will turn into a ship of some sort, or drop other orbs that turn into something else. I mean, the stories are infinite on what people see. So I think it's more of an individual's perspective and how they decide to make themselves aware to you, whether it be through Bigfoot or a gray coming through your window, an orb, or an actual ship, which I've seen more ships than orbs by far.
So you didn't get some sort of telepathic connection with it, this Sasquatch giving you a message or anything like that. It was just that you felt that it picked up on. You thought about your gun, and he thought, "I'm going." That was the connection you think you had then, yeah.
Not really with the gun. The gun was more of a secondary. I had actually I had reached down and started to pick it up, and that's what broke the connection. It was more of a curiosity. He wasn't there to harm me, I don't believe. He obviously would have easily outran me, as small as I was and as fast as he could move. There was no growling. There was, if you get around a vicious animal, that they don't want you there, especially like a dog or some sort. You can always tell when that animal doesn't want you there, and they, to stay away. I didn't get any kind of feelings like that. I didn't get anything in my head. I've heard of a lot of people having the people in their head, the telepathic things, which I would love to experience, but I've never had any of that. Mine's more body language. So when it comes to Bigfoot, his body language is pretty just relaxed until I touched the pellet gun, and then he tensed up and ran. But if I hadn't have done that, I don't know what would have happened. I think it was more of a childlike curiosity is what it felt like.
So what would you describe as your most negative experience?
The gray coming into the room was my most negative by far. That one, he had a look of malcontent. He was not really happy. It was actually, so you see a lot of the aliens. I mean, he looks a lot like this. And so, I mean, I know it's hard for you guys to see that, but this is a very, very close look of what he looks like, except for maybe a little bit thinner on the top of the skull and a little bit more. but you see how he just has that look to him where he doesn't look happy. I mean, unfortunately, whoever created these, they need to do a little bit better on making them look a little happier. Might be go over them a little more well with some people.
Nice
but
little smile. Yeah.
yeah, and because I mean they show up different for everybody, and mine just looked mad to be there. Like he was on a mission and he just didn't want to do it. And I don't know if he knew I was awake when he came through the window, and reaching out for me. I was completely horrified. I looked at this thing. It's the first time I've ever even encountered anything like that, or even heard of anything like that. And then he's reaching for me, and he just had that look on his face, like, I don't want to be here. I don't even want to be doing this. And you could just feel it radiating off of him. And when I woke up, it was definitely a relief on that one that he was done doing whatever was going on. You know, that was not the craziest sighting, but definitely the most scariest.
Yeah, I mean, I get the impression that they don't like it when you wake up and you catch them.
Or if you're already awake.
And maybe that was the thing that he didn't like, the fact that you caught him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the feeling I get whenever I've seen them as well. So,
yeah, don't wake up on them. They don't really like that at all. The sleep paralysis ones, whether I'm feeling it or not, if I catch them in the room, they really don't like it when you're awake. They tend not to stick around for very long, except for one very interesting night, which immediately I was in a very dark room. I could still see, my eyes had adjusted to it, so I could still see in the room, and they were everywhere. I was trying to put my infant to bed. We were rocking a rocking chair in a corner, so I was actually facing the entirety of the room, and I'm just rocking my son, trying to feed him, and it got so bad that I was, and of course on the camera we have a video camera on the bassinet where the baby sleeps. You don't really see anything. You do see a lot of those little orb things that fly around that people catch on cameras. I don't really know if those are real or not. You know, it could just be dust. It is a night vision camera. It's going to pick up things like that. They're going to show up, little dust flies by. The infrared's going to hit that, bounce right into the lens. It's going to look like that. So I'm able to at least moralize something like that. These things were everywhere. It was so bad. I finally had to tell them, stop. Like, I'm trying to put my son to bed. And they were all over. And they would come up and go away and come up and go away. And that one didn't scare me so much, but it was definitely overpowering. It was very overwhelming to see that many.
Was your son sick at that point by any chance? Was your son ill at that point? No. Okay.
No, he was. He's just like me. Hard time going to sleep, and we definitely had to rock him to sleep, sing songs, reading books, and then get the bottle and just rock him and go to sleep with him, and then we could transfer him into the crib. And this particular night, they were relentless. I immediately went out and told my wife, excuse me, I said, you don't go in there right now. If do you feel anything weird? She's like, no, I didn't even feel them. I just all of a sudden started seeing them. I was like, what are you doing? I was watching them just kind of wander around slowly at first, and then they started getting really excited, and they would just come up and leave, and come up, and it was multiple. They were just everywhere. And I'm like, what is going on? It's a party in there, and I just happened to be the witness to whatever. They were having a blast. Well, I'll tell you.
Do you wake at a certain time? Have you ever gone through a period of waking at a certain time every night, and anything else happening with that? I won't put words in your mouth, but have you ever woken at a certain time of night, specific time, every night?
It depends. Sometimes it's about 3:00 in the morning. I'll have that. It hasn't happened in a while, where you'll wake up in the middle of the night and different things will be happening, or they'll be around you, or you hear the noises. I've had that happen before, sometimes 2, 3, 4 days in a row, but that hasn't happened. Well, actually, that happened here. So it's happened within the last 2 months, and I think it happened for 2 days here. About 3 in the morning, is 3 to 4 is when it happens, and then you can't even get back to sleep because it's like they wake you up just right at the right time, and either you get that weird feeling that something's there, or you'll see the shadow people or the shimmer people who I happen to like better. But it's not consistent enough though that I can say, hey, this has been happening all my life. It's very rare occurrence.
So let's get your best assessment on what you think you've been encountering, Grant. all your life, what do you think you are personally encountering? What are we all encountering, this phenomenon? What do you think it is?
Oh man, I think about this every day. It is definitely in my mind at all times. I would love to think that these are extraterrestrials from a different planet. You know, they have their own life system. They have their own, you know, they're part of some type of galactic code. Or I would love to think that Star Trek and any of the, you know, Star Wars without the fighting is real. You know, where you have all these entities out there, and obviously we know there's a ton of planets around other stars. And I'm more interested in being like, hey, you know, what is it like over there? How do you guys live? The technology, and I would love that to be real. What I think is happening is a lot of it has to do with consciousness, and I'm still trying to wrap my brain around this one. You know, you get people like Grant Cameron who's full in on it, and he thinks it's just a big collective consciousness. And when you look at, you know, how the universe works, it could be. It's just so large of a thing to wrap your head around, where you're like, okay, if everything's consciousness, we're only seeing a very small portion of visible light. So we're not even seeing everything that's out there by any means. And so there could be, these things could have been here forever. They could have been born on this planet just like we did, or brought to this planet like some people say we were. They could have been living here underground or even above ground before we ever got here. And they just happen to have better technology because they've been here longer, or they grew up here, knew that something bad was going to happen, because we obviously know the world was underwater at one time. And they decided, oh, we're going to turn into spacefaring people, and took off, learned a whole bunch of cool stuff, and came back and just keep checking up on their own planet. I couldn't tell you. I really couldn't tell you. That's the enigma with everything. Everybody wants to know. It's when you get that one guy that says, oh, I know exactly what it is. You know, of course, automatically I'm going to be like,
walk away.
Yeah.
All right, mate. I think that's been a really, really good interview. We've learned loads there, and thank you ever so much. And obviously, if anything major happens, keep us informed.
Oh, I will, absolutely.
And we'll wrap it up there. That's brilliant, Grant. Thanks so much.
Thanks for your time, Grant. I just want to say that these experiencer episodes we do are a pleasure, particularly for me, because I get to sit back and watch John, an experiencer, speak with people like yourself, experiences, and truly fascinating. Some of the best episodes we do. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's and you know what's crazy is there's a ton of experiencers coming out. I mean, I have no shortage, you know, just like John got a hold of me after watching me on a different podcast. And I was actually quite surprised at how many experiencers came forward after that, just to come to me. And I'm like, I don't own a podcast, guys. I can't get this out, but they wanted to talk to me about it. And the good thing is the more you guys can do this. I mean, I appreciate you. I appreciate you doing this for other people as well, because there's going to get a point where once everybody starts talking, comparing notes, comparing experiences, I think we're going to get a little bit closer to figuring out exactly what this is.
Yeah, Dave Scott actually said something in his show to you, and I think he was spot on. He basically said something along the lines, we know each other. Experiencers know another experiencer. And that's why as soon as he said that, I thought, yeah, this guy feels genuine to me. I need to reach out. And that's when I started asking questions, and you answered them in the right way for me. And I'm really glad we got to have a chat, and Dave got to experience this as well. So excellent.
That's great.
Thank you, Grant. Hey, thank you both so much, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
We'll speak soon. Thanks, Grant.
Thanks. Have a good one.